Have you ever been told you're too independent, quiet, or difficult to approach? If so, don't be too quick to view that as negative. The truth is, there is nothing strange or wrong about you. If you find comfort and ease in solitude as you grow older, it may reflect a rare kind of inner strength, one that not everyone possesses. In today's society, where noise, constant connection, and activity are often seen as the norm, those who prefer quiet and personal space are frequently misunderstood. They're often labeled as closed off, antisocial, or even cold. But the deeper reality is quite the opposite. Those who choose solitude often have reached high emotional maturity. They don't need noise to fill a void or a crowd to feel valuable. They find a sense of wholeness in stillness itself, especially in the later stages of life. Feeling at peace alone is a sign that you've learned to truly listen to yourself, set healthy boundaries, and carefully choose what is worthy of your time and energy. People who gravitate toward solitude often share unique personality traits, deep thinkers, keen observers, and full of empathy, but without the need to display it loudly. Once you understand these traits, you may realize that you are not too quiet or too independent, as someone may have once told you. You are simply living in alignment with your inner rhythm, something few people are courageous and mature enough to do. In today's video, we'll take a deep dive into 7 defining personality traits, commonly found in older adults who enjoy a life of solitude. These qualities are often misunderstood, seen by many as signs of isolation or detachment. But in reality, they are powerful indicators of emotional maturity, inner depth, and spiritual strength forged throughout a life well lived. Throughout life, many people are swept up by the noise of the outside world, bound by duties, expectations, and the constant pull of social interaction. As a result, few are ever given the chance, or have the courage, to step into stillness and truly meet themselves. But those who choose to slow down and embrace solitude in their later years aren't doing so out of loneliness. They've simply discovered a profound sense of wholeness and quietness. The traits we're about to explore aren't traits everyone possesses. They result from experience, of growth through heartbreak, loss, transformation, and spiritual renewal. And perhaps, as you hear each of these traits, you'll find yourself smiling and quietly nodding in recognition. Yes, that's me. It's more than a moment of understanding. It's a moment where you finally begin to recognize the quiet value within yourself, a value you may have overlooked or dismissed in the past. Instead of asking yourself why you don't enjoy crowded places or feel different from those who thrive on constant interaction, you may begin to appreciate the quiet strength within you. A strength that doesn't shout for attention, doesn't need validation, but gives you calm, steadiness, and a deep sense of emotional freedom that few ever reach. Whether you've always cherished quiet moments since you were young, or only recently learned to embrace solitude after life's many twists and turns, I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover isn't just information. It could become a mirror reflecting your truest self. It may help you see yourself more clearly, accept the parts of you that once felt unusual, and even find a sense of pride in the traits others may have misunderstood or overlooked. As you come to understand these qualities more deeply, you may begin to feel more confident in who you are, more validated in how you experience the world, and more connected to the quiet essence within, the part of you that's always been there, even if you haven't fully acknowledged it. And if something in these reflections inspires you, don't hesitate to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our upcoming videos, where we'll continue to explore the gentle, powerful, and often hidden dimensions of the soul that make life richer, deeper, and more meaningful. Trait number 1. Keen observation and deep empathy. Those who enjoy solitude are rarely the ones who speak the most in a conversation. Rather than interrupting or seeking to be the center of attention, they observe quietly. And in that very silence, they begin to see what others often overlook. They notice the smallest of details, a fleeting hesitation in someone's eyes when an old memory resurfaces, the subtle shift in the wind on a quiet afternoon, or the way the morning light feels softer than usual. For them, what appears on the surface is never what it seems. Every gesture, every sound, every change in tone is a doorway into something deeper, a pulse of emotion, a signal of inner change, a moment worth paying attention to. Let's look at two real-life examples, Mr. Martin and Mr. Elias, both in their 70s. Martin is outgoing and active. He attends council meetings, joins social clubs, and rarely misses a community gathering. He's friendly and quick-witted. But when asked about the neighbor who's lived next door for over 10 years, he can barely recall a name and a few scattered details. Elias, on the other hand, leads a much quieter life. Every morning, he waters his plants and watches the birds that land on his balcony. And when he speaks, it's with striking precision. He notices that the neighbor was unusually quiet yesterday, and that the lavender bloomed earlier this year. He doesn't speak much, but when he does, every word carries weight, laced with thoughtful observation and quiet wisdom. This kind of sensitivity doesn't appear by accident. It comes from stillness, from choosing to live slowly, to feel deeply, and to be truly present. People like Elias can remember how you take your tea, notice when your voice sounds tired, and know when to sit silently beside you, offering comfort without needing to speak. They don't just see what's visible, they feel what's hidden. And that is a quiet but powerful strength, one that belongs to those rare souls who have learned to listen with their ears and hearts. Trait number 2, quiet creativity, nurtured by inner stillness. People who live alone may not seek the spotlight, but that doesn't mean they lack passion or inspiration. They are often among the most creative, but in quiet, private, and deeply personal ways. Their creativity isn't loud or performative. They do not do it to impress others, but to heal, reflect, and feel whole. They may keep a journal, write poetry, sketch, knit, carve wood, or collect fallen leaves, not to showcase on social media, and not for praise. They create simply because creating brings them peace, presence, and a profound connection with themselves. Take Ms. Clara, age 76, for example. She spends each morning making handmade cards from recycled paper in her small room at the end of the hallway. Each card features delicate details, tiny, hand-cut flowers, carefully folded corners, and a line or two written in soft purple ink. She doesn't sell them. She doesn't even send them out very often. Instead, she stores them neatly in a wooden box, as if preserving fragments of her most peaceful moments. She doesn't see it as a hobby or a talent. For her, it simply allows her to be fully present. When she glues a petal in place, mixes colors, or runs her fingers over textured paper, the noise of the world fades, time slows, and a quiet sense of serenity seeps into her breath. This isn't isolation, nor is it withdrawal from the world. It's a form of vivid, delicate imagination that only blossoms in people who have learned to live slowly and truthfully. These individuals can turn ordinary things into something beautiful, not for attention, but because it feels right in their souls. This kind of quiet creation is a sign of a soul in bloom that finds joy, not in applause, but in stillness, process, and presence. And this inner creativity, unseen by many, becomes a quiet source of strength for those who have learned to nurture life from the inside out. Trait number 3, spiritual grounding, a deep connection with the inner world. Those who embrace solitude rarely feel lonely, not because they shut the world out, but because they have cultivated a profound connection with themselves and values that transcend the material world. They don't crave noise or external excitement because a quiet space, rich with meaning and presence, exists within them. They don't need to sit in a church pew or light incense in ritual to be called spiritual. Their spirituality doesn't come from outward form, but from a quiet, deep connection with nature, memory, the vastness of existence, and the timeless questions of life. Consider Mr. Samuel, age 85. Every afternoon, he sits alone on an old wooden chair on his porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. He doesn't recite prayers or read from a sacred book. He simply reflects on the people he has loved, on the seasons his life has passed through, on the constant change of the world around him, and on something greater than words could ever name. To others, it might seem like just a quiet moment, but for him, it is a sacred ritual, a daily conversation with his soul, and a moment of communion with something vast and mysterious: life, death, impermanence, and peace. The outside world does not easily shake people like Mr. Samuel. They don't need validation or certainty to feel whole. They aren't searching for quick answers because they understand that true wisdom doesn't come from external noise, but from inner stillness. And it's precisely this stillness, this deep spiritual grounding, that makes them steady in a constantly shifting world. Not because they've turned away from life, but because they've learned to be guided by something deeper, quieter, and far more enduring: the voice within. Trait number 4, self-discipline, a steady foundation for inner freedom. One of the most overlooked, yet deeply admirable traits often found in older individuals who enjoy a life of solitude is a quiet, steadfast sense of self-discipline. These individuals don't need reminders or encouragement from others to maintain their routines or fulfill personal responsibilities. They move through life following their internal rhythm, consistent, deliberate, and grounded. Not because someone is watching, but because this discipline brings them balance and peace. Picture Ms. Louise, 80 years old. She wakes at 6 a.m. every morning, gently brews a pot of green tea, steps out onto her porch to breathe in the fresh morning air, then walks slowly through the small garden behind her home. In the afternoon, she reads quietly. In the evening, she writes a few lines in her journal and prepares a light, healthy meal before taking her prescribed supplements. No one checks in on her. No one needs to. Her day unfolds in a calm, graceful order, as if her body and mind have long ago agreed to a rhythm that now feels as natural as breathing. This kind of discipline isn't rigid or joyless. On the contrary, it reflects a deep understanding of oneself, a gentle form of self-respect. When you know what keeps you healthy, grounded, and centered, you begin to maintain those practices not out of obligation, but out of care. And within this self-discipline lies a powerful freedom. When you do not depend on anyone else to live well, you move through life more confidently and clearly. You're not easily shaken. You trust your choices. That confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't demand to be noticed. But it's there, in the calmness of your step, the steadiness of your voice, and the peace behind your gaze. It's the quiet beauty of someone who has spent a lifetime learning that true freedom begins with inner mastery, not external permission. Trait number 5, selective with relationships, prioritizing depth over quantity. People who prefer solitude don't often seek out crowds or frequent social gatherings. They don't need a long list of acquaintances to feel whole. Instead, they value authenticity, the connection that reaches beneath the surface and offers something lasting and meaningful. They've come to understand that the quality of a relationship far outweighs its frequency or volume. That's why they're careful, even intentional, about who they let into their world. Their inner life is built on peace, stillness, and a well-protected reserve of emotional energy, and not everyone is granted access. Consider Mr. Arthur and Mr. Leonard, both in their 80s. Arthur is outgoing. He's often seen at afternoon tea parties, senior center meetings, and community events. He's charming, always smiling, always busy. Yet after each event, he returns home with a quiet sense of emptiness, as if something was still missing despite all the chatter and handshakes. Leonard, on the other hand, is rarely seen at big gatherings. But every Saturday morning, he meets two lifelong friends for coffee. They talk about the weather and the life, memories, and worries they've carried for years. Afterward, Leonard doesn't feel drained. He feels whole, grounded, and grateful. People like Leonard aren't avoiding others. They're seeking something real. They're not afraid to say no to shallow connections, not out of arrogance, but deep respect for their time, energy, and inner peace. They understand that not every relationship deserves space in their heart. This isn't coldness or emotional distance. It's emotional maturity, the kind that comes from knowing yourself well enough to protect what matters most. And it's a powerful form of self-respect, the courage to choose relationships that make you feel safe, seen, and authentically yourself. Trait number 6, emotional independence, freedom that comes from within. When someone can feel whole and at peace even in the absence of others, it reflects a rare and powerful inner strength, emotional independence. This doesn't mean they avoid connection, nor does it mean they are cold or distant. They're often deeply loving and caring, but unlike many, they don't rely on constant presence or external validation to feel worthy or fulfilled. Let's look at the stories of Helen and Ruth. Both 77 years old. Helen checks her phone regularly, hoping for a message from her children or a call from an old friend. When the notifications stay silent, a shadow of doubt creeps in. She begins to wonder, have they forgotten me? Her sense of connection, and sometimes her sense of self, fluctuates with whether or not someone reaches out. Ruth, on the other hand, lives differently. Her mornings begin with a walk through the nearby park, followed by a warm cup of herbal tea, a few chapters of a good book, and time spent tending to her window garden. She still calls her family once a week, but she doesn't need daily interaction to feel seen or loved. For Ruth, joy comes from the small, meaningful things she creates in her own life. A quiet afternoon under the sun, a fresh laundry load, the soft music in the background. These little rituals aren't dependent on others. They are gifts she gives herself, reminders that life can be full even in solitude. This kind of emotional self-sufficiency doesn't appear overnight. It's the result of many years of heartbreak, loss, resilience, and the decision to rise again, alone if needed. It's forged in silence when no one came, yet peace still arrived. Emotionally independent people don't measure their worth by how often others call or check in. They anchor their value in how they nurture their inner world, protect their peace, and guide themselves through the rhythms of life. And that quiet strength, the ability to remain whole even when alone, is one of the purest forms of freedom. It's a freedom that cannot be handed to you by others. It must be grown from within. And once you've found it, it stays with you, steady, unwavering, and deeply yours. Trait number 7, deep thinkers, living slowly to understand deeply. People who prefer solitude aren't simply quiet. They often possess profoundly reflective minds, constantly turning over thoughts, questions, and observations beneath the surface of daily life. Their solitude is not a retreat from the world, but a space they intentionally carve out to see more clearly, to reflect on people, memories, and the deeper meaning hidden in everyday moments. While others move quickly, filling their days with schedules, stimulation, and constant interaction, deep thinkers choose instead to pause, observe, and listen. They seek clarity, not distraction. Take Mr. Franklin and Mr. Miles, both 74. Franklin is sociable, always attending community meetings, club events, and gatherings. He's well liked for his warmth and presence. But when asked what keeps him up at night, or what life has taught him. He usually laughs and says, "I don't dwell on those things." Miles, by contrast, lives at a slower pace. Each morning, he sits by his window with a cup of tea and writes in a worn leather journal, not a record of events, but a reflection of what he's felt and understood, and how time has reshaped his heart. Miles's words are gentle but profound when he speaks, like water drawn from a deep, quiet well. They are not loud or clever. They are honest, distilled through years of silence and sincere introspection. To be a deep thinker is not to be detached or cold. It is to live within a vivid, authentic inner world, rich with nuance and meaning. People like Miles don't gravitate toward shallow conversation. They are drawn to truth, depth, and the soulful fragments of life that others often overlook. They do not fear silence. On the contrary, they welcome it. As a friend, as a mirror, they trust their intuition. They are not pulled by trends, flattery, or the need to be seen. And often, it's the person sitting quietly in the corner of the room, the one who speaks the least, who understands the most. They do not need to prove anything. They only need to live truthfully, think fully, and feel deeply. That is not weakness. It is perhaps the greatest kind of strength. How many of these 7 traits resonate with you? If you feel most yourself when you're alone, if slowness brings you peace, and if the meaningful conversation feels more nourishing than surface-level chatter, know this: you are not disconnected. You are evolving. In a world obsessed with speed, noise, and external validation, the quiet choice to be alone is often misunderstood, mistaken for sadness or withdrawal. But in truth, it's a reflection of growth, a quiet revolution of the spirit. These qualities, deep thinking, emotional independence, keen observation, selective connection, quiet creativity, disciplined living, and spiritual grounding, are not learned overnight. They're not taught in books or passed down in quick advice. They are earned through life, through pain, through solitude, through reflection, and through the courage to let go of what no longer fits your soul. So, if you've ever feared that you're pulling away from life, let this be your gentle reassurance. You're not retreating. You're reconnecting, in your way, on your terms. And in that quiet rhythm, deeper, slower, more intentional, lies one of the most beautiful signs of an awakened soul.